As we're gearing up closer and closer to the draft lottery and then thus the draft combine, on today's episode, we're going to talk about what the Bulls' odds are for each of the top picks in this draft and what are their odds to stay at number 12 or drop below that. We'll take a look at that. Plus, we're going to look at some of the prospects to look out for in the NBA draft combine and dive into the mailbag. All that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Hqaize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content today, y'all. And draft content is right around the corner. And for those that have been here before, when we know we go into draft content, we get heavy into the weeds of draft content. I think we're going to start off this year going position by position. And that we're going to start with center. We're going to go to power forwards. Then we'll probably do all forwards kind of together, 2 episodes of forwards mixed between small forwards and power forwards. Then we'll get into our guards, as those are the unlikely or not as needed positions that the Chicago Bulls could draft. But again, you never know what AK is going to do and how he's going to value guards. So we'll get into that. And then after go position by position, we'll do a group of my favorite players in the draft and kind of my ranking for how I want the Bulls to draft them. And then we'll do sleepers, right? That's how we do it. And then that's just the start, right? We're going to keep doing stuff as news comes out about the combine. We'll continue to cover it and everything like that. But with that said, before we get into the draft combine itself, we have to get into the draft lottery, right? And that's where it's going to be determined where everybody picks in that lottery of the draft. The top 4 picks are lottery picks. As far as, that's how you can move up from number 12. You have to move into one of the top 4 picks. Bulls can't move into number 5 or 8 or anything like that unless they trade up, but you still have to get through the draft lottery first, right? So let's talk about the odds right now in that draft lottery. As most Bulls fans, I think, know, because it's been heavily talked about at this point, the Bulls have a 1.7% chance at the number 1 overall pick. That's slim chances, but it is chances that we've had similar before when it came to Derrick Rose. And so, of course, there's some Bulls fans holding out hope, especially with the Pope being from Chicago, that we're going to have some chance to move up into that spot. It's unlikely, but it's clear if we do move into number 1, Cooper Flagg is going to be the player that's taken there. I don't think anybody gets the number 1 pick and they pass on Cooper Flagg because of who and what he can be coming into it. While the season started off a little slow, you still have your people that try to make it seem like Modest Buzelis is better than Cooper Flagg. He's not. But that doesn't mean that he can't be by the end of their careers, right? I think that's that's the difference of it. Cooper Flagg, younger, is better than where Modest is, but that doesn't necessarily. We'll see how their career goes. But 19.2 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.4 steals, 1.4 blocks per game. Cooper Flagg impacted every area of the game of basketball, and especially when you look at what his probably biggest special skill is outside of size and athleticism. It's the two-way play that he has, bringing in that defensive mindedness that the Bulls do lack. If they were to get that, he can guard any position out on the court, right? Of course, he's going to have probably problems with the bigger and larger centers, but this is a guy that's going to be around the league for a very long time, and we'll see what happens with that one. If the Bulls get Cooper Flagg, if they look up to the number 1 overall pick, man, are we off to the races cooking. Then the Bulls have a 1.9% chance at the number 2 overall pick, where anywhere between Ace Bailey could go there. Dylan Harper as well is another player that can go there. Of course, look at those guys. Of course, that would mean that the Bulls are having to clear a spot, maybe for one of those 2 guys, depending on how you look at what position they end up playing with when it comes down to that. But that's a story for another day. We'll worry about that when the Bulls get that, if and when they get to that spot, right? So if it comes down to it, we'll see, right? But we'll see what happens when it comes down to it, right? Overall, they have that 1.9% chance at the number 2 overall pick. Then you're looking at number 3, 2.1% chance at the number 3 overall pick, and a 2.4% chance at number 4 as well. So that rounds out what the Bulls can do in the lottery. So no matter how if you get to number 4, personally, I take a heavy look at Trey Johnson. If he's there, well, he should be there at number 4. Even if that looked at as a reach, right, I would take Trey Johnson. I think he has the tremendous upside that you're looking at when it comes down to that. Yeah, VJ Edgecombe is a guy I really love in this draft as well, as is Ace Bailey. But to me, you get 4, and heck, even maybe at number 3, I'm still considering Trey Johnson, man. Trey Johnson, I think, is a guy that, because of the adequate hype around the other players around there, I look at Trey Johnson, and he brings such a smooth, silky scorer, and the defensive upside, I think, is higher than what people are giving him credit for. But, at the end of the day, if you fall anywhere between 2 and number 4, anything between Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, Trey Johnson is all on the opportunity there for the Chicago Bulls, right? But then the Bulls, in the most likely scenario that they have, is staying at number 12, which they have an 85.2% chance to stay at number 12, and a 6.6 chance to move down to number 13, and a 0.1% chance to move down to number 14. Now, again, while the possibilities of that seem slim, you never want to just assume that you won't, because somebody got to move up in the lottery. If that comes behind teams behind the Chicago Bulls, then that means that we have to move back. So keep a lookout for that. That is a chance that may happen, and I can already hear it, right? Especially my pro tanking fans. I think I can hear the faint sounds right now already starting of whining, moaning, and bitching. That they will do if the Bulls happen to move down a spot or 2 in this draft because they didn't tank, right? I can if you just quiet a little bit, right? You can already hear the whining starting. You can really hear it. It's there, right? You hear it, right? And of course, that is what will happen. And I can't wait for the time between now and the NBA draft of all the whining, all the think pieces. Oh my God, the hat throws by Matt Peck that will happen if the Bulls not only didn't get a lottery pick, but then move back as well. Like, that's going to be a sight to behold, and that's going to be something that I'm going to take. Like I told you, I'm embracing the villain arc this offseason. So any part of the fan base that I control and bother, I will do that. That means pro tankers. That means anti-tankers as well. That means everybody, right? Anybody can get it. I'm here for complete chaos this offseason. So just look out for that. Watch yourselves. But of course, if the Bulls stay at number 12, who are some of the players that can be on the board still for them when they draft? There's hopes of Khaman Mauluach and Derik. And while some mocks may have those guys going that low, I think that once the draft combine starts, which is next week as well, that's when you can start taking some of the mock drafts more seriously, because a lot of those mock draft experts are going to be there. But I think that Khaman Mauluach, Derik, these are 2 guys that are going to go right outside those top 4 or 5 picks. Like, I don't think Khaman Mauluach drops lower than maybe 6th or 7th. Derik, I've looked at it before, and of course, this is all dependent upon where the draft lies, because you can't really predict it until you get that draft lottery over with and know where everyone's drafting. But for example, I don't think that Derik gets past maybe as low as Dallas. I don't think Dallas would pass on him. Now, they need a point guard. They could take Hqaize out of Illinois. Also looking at number 8 with the Spurs, or number 9 with the Rockets. I don't think he gets past either one of those teams. So, we'll see what happens there. We've covered and we'll go into detail on these players, of course, in future episodes as far as their skill set, things like that. But those are 2 young centers. Derik has a crazy game when is able to be very ball dominant while still being a solid passer. The instincts that he has passing the ball and his ball handling, even out to the perimeter, are really good, which brings a weird fit out with the Chicago Bulls. But nonetheless, it is what it is, right? Khaman Mauluach, listen, he would be a dream for the Chicago Bulls. People talk about his lack of rebounding numbers. I've talked about it before. His rebounding percentage is almost 20. When you go and look at some of the comparative players, like, he's head and shoulders above everyone else when it comes to rebounding and block percentage. Really, it's just, I think people got to look at how he was used, the fact that he was kind of pulled away from the basket as well in their offense. Khaman Mauluach has a immensely huge talent in this draft. Then you're looking at some of the other players. Of course, Colin Murray-Boyles is a guy that really a lot of Bulls fans are starting to wake up to. You look at the type of athlete that he is as well, shooting 58.6% from the field last season. Just tremendous upside when it comes down to that. And you'll see what happens, right? But I think there is a chance that he does fall there. And he doesn't really shoot the ball at all, and that's a problem. I know people have brought him up coming to the Bulls. Unless Matas Buzelis' 3-point shooting is legit, a future forward combo of Khaman Mauluach and Matas Buzelis, as things stand right now, that's bad spacing because neither one has really shown a consistent ability to shoot. But again, there is talent. There's huge talent and upside there, right? Asa Newell, of course, is another guy that you guys know I love. Him, Thomas Sorber, these are two players that I absolutely love for the Chicago Bulls with their defensive upside and things like that. I think that they could do really well for the Bulls. Rasheer Fleming is another one that we're going to go heavily into covering as well. I can't wait to watch Rasheer Fleming's tape. And then, even though I know it's going to stress some people out, do not overlook some guards in this draft. Jace Richardson is a player that could be drafted here. With his scoring ability and things like that, I tell you what, I would, if they bring him in, right, of course there's going to be some questions there. Oh, okay, what are we doing with our big man rotation then? But especially with the future of Coby White kind of uncertain, I think that you add some certainty to that if you see the Bulls draft a guard, because there is still a chance that they go best available in this draft, right? Carter Bryant is another guy that I absolutely love in this draft, 6'8", 225 pounds. I think when you look at him as well, like he, as a front court mate with Matas Buzelis, huge upside and potential there as well. So there are some guys in here, and I already know when I get into the guard portion of this, and some of the guys that I'm going to cover here are going to be some guys that people are going to be like, Hqaize, why are we talking about this? And we're talking about it because it is a chance of it happening. And also, AK, Jeremiah Fears is another guy there, right? So, but also Danny Wolf's an option as well. So we'll get into the weeds of the draft situation and conversation. I personally can't wait to get into that. So with that said, though, that's it. Let's cut that, even though we got some draft talk in the mailbag as well. We got 3 voicemails today. Let's go ahead and get into those. The first one, this one's from Shay.
What's up, Hqaize? It's Shay. Look, I know a lot of people are thinking, hey, the Chicago Bulls might need to trade Coby White or trade Ayo and keep Ayo Dosunmu or vice versa. But I just want to tell y'all something. There is a world where we keep Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu. Look, every good team needs a good sixth man. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, Ayo Dosunmu could have potential all-star potential. Yeah, that's true, but a lot of six men are really good on a lot of teams and are really important factors to a lot of teams. Look at Peyton Pritchard. He probably could start anywhere else, but he's probably going to win a championship with the Boston Celtics. He's actually won one with the Boston Celtics. Now, I know what you're thinking is, who said we got to trade away Ayo and Coby? But there are some people that have said that we got to choose between either one of them because both of them are going to be free agents this next upcoming off season, and both of them are going to want to get paid. And we do have a lot of cap flexibility. The fact that you even pointed it out. So there is a way where we could keep both of them. You know, because let's face it, do you really want to lose Coby White, especially when you already found something that has been working for your team right now, and you have 2 young guys, and Josh Giddey and him, who are coming into their own, basically. You know, I feel like there is a way where we can keep Coby and Ayo, not just because we have cap flexibility, but it could also. But like I said, every team needs a good sixth man. Anyway, hey, tell me what you think. Peace.
Of course, we could keep Ayo and Coby for sure, right? And here's the thing, Shay, I got to task you with this. Every time you say, I know what you're thinking, you very rarely say what anybody's thinking. It's what you must be thinking. Because who said anything? Even if you do view Ayo as having all-star upside, we've seen all-stars come from players coming off the bench quite a bit, actually, right? So I don't know where you get off in always saying that. I know what you're thinking. Like, no, you clearly don't. Just say your piece. Stop worrying about what other people are thinking so much. It's okay just to say, hey, I think the Bulls should keep Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu, and here's why. You don't have to come up against what somebody else is thinking. I know what you're thinking. Stop that. But no, there is that. And for people that think that the Bulls just automatically aren't going to keep Ayo and Coby, I think they're wrong. Now, I do think some things could maybe push that that likelihood higher. If the Bulls do draft a guard here, maybe. But I think Ayo's already shown an ability to play 1, 2, and 3 in this league, period. And as long as he's able to do that, especially coming off the bench, that's a weapon that you do need. And I think also the thing that fans do, because if we run into this overall in Chicago Bears Central too, that they look at a player and then they automatically try to think who they can replace. And you don't have to do that, right? There are multiple roles with multiple minutes. We've seen players play starter minutes coming off the bench and be hugely important. And so I don't think that anybody who's thinking, oh, well, if we sign Coby, that means we have to let go of Ayo or vice versa. No, there's not there's a world in which they both stay here, and you need both their skill sets because you need defenders. Ayo's best trait still is defensively, but he's no slouch offensively either. So I think that's the thing you got to look at. We'll see. Like I said before, a lot of the Bulls' best lineups still were with Ayo Dosunmu in it. That's both with Coby and with Josh Giddey. He fits both with both of those players. And so I think there's a high likelihood that you're going to see both of them stay here. All right, let's get into the next one, man. This one's from Javier.
Hqaize, hope all is well. My name's Javier. First time caller. Probably called over to the other show you're on a couple times before, but I follow you around, so always like your takes. Very good takes. But reason for my call here is the episode you dropped about Nikola and the other center that we have, Zach Collins, being on the chopping block and stuff. I'm wondering, what do you think about this? But, my take on all this is, the Bulls surely do need like a center. But, I'm more of a best available kind of guy, especially in the lottery, wherever the chips may fall, or whatever that saying is, you just got to go best available, even if it ends up duplicating one of the positions that you have. We're a young team, and, I think that, if there's, that talent out there, and sure, you have Coby, you have Ayo, you have Giddey, Modest and stuff like that, P. Will. If for whatever reason, let's say a Trey Johnson falls or something like that, like, I feel like you got to take a guy like that. You got to take a swing at a guy like that, because we don't know where everyone is going to fall, at the end of the lottery. And my thought process here is, let's say, the lottery happens, Bulls stay where they're at 12, but, a team like the 76ers, they get to keep their pick or whatever. There's all these teams like the 76ers, the Toronto Raptors, they're like right there on the fringe, especially like the Toronto Raptors and the 76ers. They're right there on the fringe of being back to relevancy, especially the 76ers, once they get Embiid back. And if they keep their pick, it's I believe it's top 6 protected or something like that. If they keep it, I'm sure they're going to get a stud. And that's going to, that's going to be beneficial for teams like that to get back into the playoffs. And then that kicks down the teams that, my point here is, these teams have the possibility of jumping the Bulls and getting in the play-in, or possibly even the playoffs. And those teams like the Heat, the Hawks, if they get kicked down or whatever, personally, maybe the Bulls are a little better than the Hawks. But, you don't know, and, you don't know what's going to happen. And I feel like these teams have the chance of, being better than the Bulls, and then the Bulls will be right back in the lottery situation. So, if I'm the Bulls, best available, if you're duplicating a position that you already have, maybe that's a chance for you to acquire some assets by trading that, that piece. Maybe it's a Coby White, maybe it's a Giddey, whatever, but, that gives you the chance to go all in on 2026, possibly, getting a good draft pick, a higher draft pick in that, which I hear it's the lottery or that draft class, next year's draft class is supposed to be even, deeper. So, if that's the case, like, let's just do that, just want to hear your thoughts on that, what you think about that. Again, love the show. Peace.
Javier had a little bit of a longer one. That's why we only got 3 voicemails here. But I'll say this. Best available versus position of need. There's a chance that could be the same player, right? I think that could still be a big. Now, I get what you're saying is that if somebody does fall, it's not going to be Trey Johnson. I want to be clear. You said if Trey Johnson falls to number 12, the Bulls better take him. I don't give a damn what any Bulls fan whine, complains, moans about. I don't give a shit. Fuck you and your one titty auntie. If that's what you're going to be saying in that case, I don't care about that, right? Because if he falls down to number 12, that's bananas. But with that said, if the chances of somebody the caliber of that falling, I think you would have to be in this particular draft top 7, right? I think everything out of that, like there you can make a case for any of those players being kind of all around the same level. Of course, some have more upside because of age and things like that, but I think where the Bulls pick at number 12, unless somebody hits a crazy fall, that a lot of those guys are all going to have very similar upsides, albeit a variance there, of course, right? So I think that's the thing you got to look at for that. And overall, I think the team will be fine, right? I think the team will be absolutely fine. And there is something to be said about best available, but even what you said, like you mentioned teams below the Bulls jumping, you can't worry about that. You got to worry about the best fit for your team, right? Because like even if you do take best available and it's guard, they're not going to play. If the Bulls are trying to win this season, but you want players that are going to play, there's a lot. And like I said, it's just not a straightforward thing as far as even if you go best available, that doesn't mean they'll turn into the best. It doesn't, right? I'm sure a lot of people thought they were taking best available, and that's why Khalil Ware dropped. Now, how do people feel about that in a redraft, right? So I think you just got to trust your scouting department, trust the needs of your team, and hope that you're going to come out the best side of that, and we'll see what happens. But you're right. There are teams like the 76ers, but then again, is Embiid even going to be healthy, right? Toronto Raptors are a team that's right there. They're definitely going to be competing at least for a play-in spot next year. And we'll see how those things go, man. And overall, I think the Bulls, they're in a position to get what they need and what they want, and we'll see what happens there. But all right, let's get into the last voicemail for today. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, Hqaize, this is Reginald calling just to give my opinion on the conversation you and Pat was having about Jalen Smith being a target for the Washington Wizards. And while I agree that nobody should be untouchable on the Bulls, is there really anybody we want in Washington right now? I mean, I like, Crispert, Champagne, whatever you could pronounce the name. He's all right too. But the Bulls don't really need a guard or even a small forward. They need size and quality depth. So I still see doubt they're going to look to trade Alex Sarr. I mean, they just drafted him with the number 2 pick. So unless they just plan on offering like 3 second-round draft picks for him, I don't see a good reason to trade Jalen Smith right now. And even if you are trading him and getting the cash relief, does that mean they're planning on making a big move in free agency? I don't see the reason to trade Jalen Smith just to trade him. I mean, when he was, getting regular playing time, and when he finally got his shot to start falling, I think we were all recognizing man, Jalen Smith needs to be getting more minutes. He needs to be taking, Pete Will's minute. That's what we all thought, and we were all thinking the minute playoffs come, Pete Will need to be sat down for Jalen Smith to start. Instead, we were seeing Pete Will get minutes at the 5. I think we even saw THT get minutes at the 4. I don't know if that's Billy just being Billy, because we've seen him do stupid shit like that before. But I can't blame, I don't know if Jalen Smith had an injury that nobody really knows about. We kept seeing him ice his knees and whatnot. but we haven't heard in the off season that he had to have surgery or had to get a scope or anything of that nature. So if he's healthy and Billy didn't play him because he has something against tall people, that's one thing. But if he's healthy, then I think the Bulls should hold out for a better offer and focus on moving off of Vucevic, John Collins, and maybe Kevin Huerter's contract, simply because they're more expensive and might be able to get them back a little bit more time. But what's your opinion? Thanks.
Why will the Bulls trade Jalen Smith? I don't think it's always about who you can get with the other team. It could be about creating a roster spot, right? In the free agents that we heard that the Bulls could be interested in, there are a lot of bigs in that. And I'll tell you what, like Jalen Smith, like what he brings is, and we've seen it before, he can bring some really good stuff to the Bulls. But if the Bulls are making this shift and they realize maybe we don't need as much offense, maybe defense is where we want to focus at, that's where you can move a player like Jalen, who is frankly not good on defense at all, and bring in more defensive players that kind of make sense to what you're trying to play and what this team does need. So I think that's a part into it. So yeah, they got a lot of second round picks. If you get some seconds back from the Washington Wizards, clear up some cap space where you can go out. Think about it this way too. Trading Jalen Smith, right? The Bulls right now are projected after a Josh Giddey re-signing and after drafting their first round pick, they're projected to have around $19 million. If you can trade Jalen Smith and maybe a team can absorb his salary, or you take only part of that back, you can get up towards the $22, $23 million to then have to put out on other players, right, in the free agent market. So that's the thing to look out for as well. The Washington Wizards have 8 second-round picks over the course of the next 2 years. They're going to be trying to sell some of those. So that could be the thing that's there as well, even if it's not based on just the player you can get back. So I think that's some of the things you have to look at for as well. Also the injury, as you said, and then just the overall fit. We know what he can bring offensively. And I know you said to replace P. Will, Jalen Smith has played less than 10% of his minutes in his NBA career at power forward. So it's not just Billy Donovan that doesn't see him as a power forward. It's been basically every coach that we've seen him with see him as a center and not a power forward. Maybe that's because of the defense, right? Because think about it, you got really athletic, kind of twitchy players at power forward now that probably would have been small forwards in the past. So maybe it's the defensive aspect because he's not a great on-ball defender. But either way, I think if you're looking for him to replace P. Will, basically every coach that he's had, not just Billy Donovan, has saw him and said, yeah, not a power forward. That doesn't mean that it's right. That doesn't mean he can't do some things at the power forward position. But I think clearly he's here to play center. And if the Bulls do go after Day'Ron Sharpe or Paul Reed, whoever else, that could mean that you're focused more on a defensive-minded center in that position. And that could end up being what you need. So I think that's the way to look at it, Reggie. But great voicemail. That's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following us at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like we like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.